Shalom, and thank you again for joining us. If it's your first time, just listen in. But for those a bit more experienced, today we are covering Yehu-Hanan, which in the modern Hebrew, in a shorter form, is Yochanan. And of course, John is also the same. And we're in chapter 8, and we will cover verses 6 to 9. And so we begin. And as I always do, we give our Nakud vowel marking chart to help those who are relatively not so sure of the vowel marks. And then also these great resources which will help you exceedingly in understanding your Hebrew with color coding and translation and transliteration. And then we have, of course, the Do It in Hebrew Dictionary, which is very helpful in determining your root words. So let us begin. Now, as we begin, we must remember that in our previous lesson, we dealt with the religious elite bringing before Yeshua a woman supposedly caught in adultery. And I did make this point that where was the man involved in it? But anyway, they come to Yeshua and they say, didn't Moses say to stone women like this? And they ask him, what do you say? And that's where we begin. So we're in verse 6, which is represented with a Vav, the sixth letter of the alphabet. And so we go through the letters. Vav, He, Mem, Sofit. That's Mem at the end of a word. It's a closed Mem. Then we have Lamed, Nun, Samek, Vav, Tav, Aleph, Tav, Vav, Dalet, Bayet, Resh, Vav, Zion, Aleph, Tav, Lamed, Mem, Zade, Aleph, Ayin, Lamed, Yod, Vav, Sin, Tet, Nun, He. And so let us read that. Vehem, and they. Le, na, sot, to test. Oto, him. Dibru, they spoke, or they said, Zot, this. Lim, so, to find. Alev, concerning him, about him. Sit, na, an accusation. Now, if we look down the bottom, we have matzah, which was defined to discover, to encounter. It's a kol verb form. And sitna is a feminine noun meaning accusation, slander, allegation, or condemnation. And of course, the translation. They said to test him to find an accusation against him. So let us read that now. Vahem le nasot oto Dibru Zot, Limso, Alive, Sitna. And they, to test him, they said this to find about him an accusation. And so we come to part B, and we have a Vav, Yod, Tav, Kaf, Vav, Fe, Sofit, Yod, He, Vav, Shin, Ayin, Lamed, Mem, Tet, He, Vav, Yod, Tav, Vav, Bayet, Aleph, Zade, Bayet, Ayin, Vav, Ayin, Lamed, He, Kuf, Resh, Kuf, Ayin. Remembering these are in white, meaning they're not pronounced. So we read, Vayit ko fef, and he bent. It's a hit pale, so therefore it's like he did it himself. And he bent Yahushua or Yahusha le-ma-ta, down or downward. If we look down here, we've got le-ma-ta, adjective meaning down or downward. And of course, we've also got kafef, which is a kol verb to bend, to bow. And then we have vaytav, which means, and he wrote. Now there's a kaf missing there, so we got katav is a kol verb to write, to compose. And often that happens in the Hebrew where they drop a letter, they shorten it or so. So it is Ve'tav, and he wrote. Be'etzba'o, and the bet could be with or in, and then the O is his, and then the root is finger, etzba. Feminine noun meaning finger or index finger. Al meaning upon, ha, kar, ka, meaning the ground, which is a different word than we're used to. Kar, ka is a feminine noun meaning earth, soil, ground, land, or it can mean the bed of the sea or a river, just for a bit of definition. So the translation is, Yeshua then bent down and wrote with his finger on the ground. And so now we can read it. Vayit kofef Yahushua lemata ve'tav be'etzba'o al ha-karka. And he bent Yahusha down or downward, and he wrote with his finger upon the ground. And so we turn to 7 now, represented with a Zion, the 7th letter of the alphabet. And we go through the letters. Vav, Yod, He, Yod. Kaf, Aleph, Shin, Resh, He, Vav, Samek, Yod, Fe, Vav. Lamed, Shin, Aleph, Lamed. Aleph, Tav, Vav. Vav, Yod, Sin, Aleph. Aleph, Tav, Ayin, Yod, Nun, Yod, Vav. Vav, Yod, Aleph, Mem, Resh. And we read it. Vehi. And it was. Often translated came to pass. Ka-a-sher. Like that, or like when, based on context. Ho-si-fu. They added, or they caused to add, because it's like a hiffilt. Lishol, to ask. Oto, him. Va-yi-sa, and he lifted. Now we can see that down here. Nasa is a cold verb to carry, to bear, to lift. It even marries, it also means to marry. And he lifted et a knife, his eyes. And we can see the singular form is ayin. Feminine noun meaning eye, look, gaze. The yod ending is the plural. And then we have vayomer, and he said. And so we can now read that. Vehi ka'asher hotzifu lishol oto vayisa et a naiv vayomer. And the translation, and it was like when they added to ask him, and he lifted Grandma's eyes, and he said. And of course the translation is, and it came to pass when they asked him once more, he lifted his eyes. And of course sha'al, which we also saw, was a cold verb to ask, the question, to query. And of course hosif is a verb to add, to supplement, to continue. It can be used as again as well. And so we now turn to 7b. We have an Aleph, Lamed, Yod, He, Mem, Safit, Mem, Yod, Ved, Kaf, Mem, Safit, Chet, Fe, Sofit, Mem, Pe, Shin, Ayin, He, Vav, Aleph, Yod, Dalet, He, Bayet, He, Aleph, Vayet, Nun, Sofit, Nun at the end of the word, and then Bayet, Resh, Aleph, Shin, Vav, Nun, He. Alehem, meaning unto them, me, who, va, kem, in or among you, chaf, meaning innocent, me, pe, sha, from transgression. If we look down here, we've got pesha as a masculine noun meaning crime, offense, misdeed, sin, and of course it means transgression as well. Who, he, yadeh, shall cast. Ba, meaning in her or at her. Even, a stone. Ba, rishona. At her first, it could be in her first, but at her first in the context. And the her is the hey at the end. Because the root of it is rishon. As negative means first, earliest, former, initial, or firstly even. So and the translation is, and he said to them, who among you is innocent of transgression? Let him cast at her the first stone. And so now we can read that. Alehem, mi, vakem, chaf, mi, pesha, hu, yadeh, ba, even, ba, rishona. Unto them, who is in or among you innocent from transgression, he shall cast at her a stone at her first. And then we come to 8, which is a chet, the 8th letter of the alphabet, and we go through letters. Vav, Yod, Tav, Kaf, Vav, Fe and Fe Sofit. Shin, Nun, Yod, Tav, Lamed, Mem, Tet, Hey, Vav, Yod, Tav, Vav, Ayin, Lamed, Hey, Kuf, Resh, Kuf, Ayin. Vayit, Kofef, and he bent. It's something he does himself, right? Shanit, mean a second time or secondly. Le mata, down or downward. Vaitav, and he wrote, with a calf missing from there, dropped off. Al, upon, ha karka, the ground. And he bent down the second time and wrote on the ground. And we got shanit, which is negative, can mean again or secondly. And so we can read that. Vayit kofef, shanit, lemata, vaitav, al ha-karkar. And he bent a second time down, and he wrote upon the ground. And now we come to 9. It's represented with a tet, the 9th letter of the alphabet. And we have a hey, mem safit, shin, mem, ayin, vav, vav, lamed, bet, mem safit, nun, kuf, fe, mem safit, vav, yod, zade, aleph, vav, aleph, chet, dalet, aleph, chet, dalet, hey, chet, lamed, mem, nun safit, hey, zion, kuf, nun, yod, mem safit. So let's read it. Hem, they, shamu, they heard, the libam, and their heart, the mem safit is there, nok, fam, struck them. And we can see down here, it's actually rooted in tav, kuf, fe, sofit. So it's ta, kaf, which is a kal verb to attack, to smite. And we also have ta, kuf. Ta, kuf means smitten or attacked as an adjective. So struck them, va yetsu, and they departed. Echad, one, and echad, one. So we can say one by one. Ha-chel comes from the word meaning to begin, so beginning. Min from ha-ze-ke-nim, the elders. And down here I've given you also zaken, masculine noun meaning old person, wise person, or sage. And as an adjective, it means aged or old-fashioned. And then we have the verbal form, the kal verb zakan, means to age, to grow old. I've also given you lev, which of course is the root word for the masculine noun meaning heart. And so, the translation. They heard, and their heart struck them, and they went out one by one, beginning with the older ones. So now we can read that. Hem, shamu, libam, nok, fam, vayetzu, echad, hachel, min hazakenim. They heard, and their heart struck them, and they departed one by one, beginning from the elders. And so now we come to 9b. We have a vav, ayin dalet, he, aleph, chet, resh, vav, nun, yod, mem sefit. Vav, yod, vav, tav, resh, yod, he, vav, shin, ayin, lamed, vet, dalet, vav, vav, he, aleph, shin, he. And we read it. That, and until ha'acharonim, meaning the last. And we can see the root in there is achar, meaning after. So it means the last. Vayi vater, and remain. Now, there's an interesting thing here is that yeter is a masculine noun meaning remainder or rest. But what we got here is a grammar note. In vayi vater, the vav has replaced the yod, being a weak letter. And also because maybe they don't like to have two yods in a row, it's hard to say it then. So it is vayi vater, and remain, Yeshua, levado, which means him alone, because levad, if we look down here, it means alone, apart by oneself. Vaha isha, and the woman. So from the previous, the older ones, down to the last. And Yeshua alone remained, and the woman. So let us read that. Va'ad ha'acharonim vayi vater Yahushua levado v'ha'isha. And the translation, and unto the last, and remained Yahusha, him alone, and the woman. And so we turn to 9c. We have an ayin, mem, dalet, tav. Beit, tav, vav, kaf, sofit. And we read it, omedet, standing, batavek, in the middle. So if we look down here, we've got amad, which is a kal verb, to stand, to be positioned. Then we got tivek, PL verb, to mediate or to act as middleman. That helps us understand how it's used. Tavek is a masculine noun meaning center, middle, or between. And then tok is a masculine noun inside, interior, or midst. Giving you the different variations just helps you when you see it in a different form. So now we can read that, remembering that the translation says, and the woman was standing in the middle. So we read it, O medet, batavek, standing in the middle. And now we turn to our revision. We see vav, and if we remember, it has a value of 6. So we're in verse 6. Vehem, and they, le nasot, to test, oto him, dibru, literally it's they spoke this, lim so, to find, alev, concerning him, sitna, an accusation. And they, to test him, they said, well, literally, they spoke this to find about him an accusation. Vayit kofef, and he bent himself, that is. Yeshua lemata, meaning downward. Veitav, and he wrote. Be'etzba'o, with his finger, upon ha-karka, the ground. And he bent Yeshua down, and he wrote with his finger upon the ground. Now we have a Zion, value of 7, Vayhi, and it was, or it came to pass, Kasher, like when, or like that, or like when, Hotzifu, they caused to add, Lishol, to ask, Oto, him, Vayisa, and he lifted at a knife his eyes, Vayomer, and he said, and it was like when they added to ask him, and he lifted his eyes, and he said, we're in 7b, Alehem, unto them, me, who, Vakem, in you or among you, Chaf, meaning innocent, me, Pesha, from transgression, who, he, Yadei, shall cast, Ba, in her, or it could even be against her, Even, or at her, Even, a stone, Ba, Rishona, in her firstly, or at her first. Unto them, who among you innocent from transgression, he shall cast at her a stone at her first. And we have Chet, value of 8. Vayit kofef, and he bet. Shenit, which literally means secondly, or a second time. Le mata, downward. Vaitav, and he wrote, upon ha karka, the ground. And he bent a second time down, and he wrote upon the ground. And then we have a tet, value of 9. We're in verse 9. Hem, they, shamu, they heard, le libam, and their heart, nok fam, meaning struck them, vayetsu, and they departed, they went out, echad one, echad by one, ha-chel, beginning, min from, ha-ze-ke-nim, the elders. They heard, and their heart struck them, and they departed one by one, beginning from the elders. And now we're in 9b. And until ha-acharonim, meaning the last, va-yi-vater, and remained, Yahushua, levado, him alone, the ha-isha, and the woman. And until the last, and remained, Yeshua, him alone, and the woman, Omedet, standing, batavek, in the middle, standing in the middle. And then finally we also come to our vowel markings, just to remind us that a kamas has a longer a sound, a patak a shorter, zere a longer e sound, segol a shorter e, shava, it breaks the word into its syllables, cholam is the o sound, shuruk a short u, kubutz a bit longer, and then we have a combination called a kataf segol, where we have a Shavah followed by a Segol, a shorter E. Then we have Chirik, the R sound, and then we have Kataf Patak, which is a Shavah followed by the Patak, the shorter A. And then we have Kataf Kamatz, which is a Shavah followed by a Kamatz. And finally we come again to the resources because they are extremely useful and we would encourage you to use them. And then we have a chart of the values of the letters, and that's important when we begin to get into Gematria. But even before that, it's good to know the values of the letters because then we can look at verses and see their numerical values so we know what verse we're in. So let's just randomly look at them. Kuf is 100, Zade 90, Yod 10, Nun 50, Resh 200, Pei 80, Nun 50, Kaf 20, Samek 60, and Shin 300. And so I've given you the resources, of course, so I would encourage you to use them. And we would just want to wish you, therefore, a Shavua Tov, a great week, a good week, in Yahusha or Yeshua's glorious name. Amen.